Okay, cool. Start the capture.
I've.
Oh. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, mate.
We're back in
We're
business.
back. We haven't recorded in ages, and we've had a little bit. We had a setback as well. I feel like we should.
Major setback.
We've lost a whole episode.
So this seems
Well,
it's gonna seem like we've made this up, but we had an episode which was supposed to come out before the last episode where we had written our scripts for a Batman movie, right? A sequel to the Batman.
and I feel like if you listen to episode on episode, we did tee up the fact we were going to do a Batman episode.
Yeah.
And then the next episode is, do you remember last episode when we did our Batman episode?
And there's no Batman
There is
episode.
no Batman episode. It's such a professional setup here. I'm surprised it happened. I couldn't really believe it.
Well-oiled machine, and it's
It
just
was.
it's had a bit of a spanner in the
We
works.
sat down for an hour and a half and the microphone just didn't work. I couldn't believe it. It's such an expensive and well-run operation.
Well, the worst part about it is that my script, as you will know,
Yeah, I
Was-
know this is a fact.
yeah, so just trust us. The source is us on this. Well, my script was about Batman fighting Professor Pig.
Yeah, and a little bit of Mad Hatter.
That was it, yeah, Mad Hatter. Right. And so the other day, there was like a leak or, some insider info or whatever, I suppose, which is still a leak, about how Professor Pig is going to be one of or either the main villain in Matt Reeves' second Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to be with also Scarecrow, Clayface, and Hush, apparently, in this movie.
Sounds nuts.
But I
I
think
don't trust it.
it may be Thomas Elliot, not Hush. So
Yeah.
they'll set it up. But the problem is, unless he's in the first movie and you have a lot of him just being normal, even people who don't know the storyline will be like, well, who's this random person that's never in any Batman stuff?
Oh, they've
So-
introduced a new character and there's a mysterious villain.
Yeah,
Of course, it can't be that one.
exactly.
And I guess that's a quite a apt segue to this kind of episode, because I also feel like someone at DC has hacked my laptop
Maybe we did record the episode,
and they
right?
stole it.
They stole my idea, and then they heard you talking to me about your Superman script, and they stole your idea.
No, because I just think we have a third brother, and I was working on this script with our third brother, a year ago, 18 months ago.
Yeah, last summer 22.
Summer 22. So like, I reckon they stole it even from then. They had us, mate. They were coming.
They're in your OneDrive account.
they're in my OneDrive account. They have found two blokes from the UK who has a Dell laptop and hacked it. Because they
No-
knew you'd have a great
No other.
script.
Yeah, there's literally no other way that could have happened.
No, not at all. So is this? I looked up that I have a memory, but
Okay.
now I'm not sure if that was a dream or not.
Mm-hmm.
Where there was like this, it kind of feels like pseudoscience, but basically there was a video about how there were monkeys across the globe that were given the same puzzle, and like the monkeys in Australia solved it, and then some monkeys in like Brazil solved it like a day later, and it was talking about like shared consciousness and group ideas and stuff. So when you have things like Olympus Has Fallen coming down at exactly the same time as White House Down,
Yeah,
or like Armageddon coming out exactly the same time as Deep Impact and whatever.
yeah.
Maybe this is one of those. I'm not trying to put myself on the same pedestal as
You and the Warner
agree.
Brothers writers really just vibing out like across continents.
But maybe actually the writers, we can trust them because they realise there's a gap in the lore that the mainstream media has been given around Superman, and actually maybe around DC as a whole. So yeah, today's episode is about the direction DC's going in, about how James Gunn has hacked my laptop, and actually about how I watched Guardians 3 for the first time the other day, because I thought it was a really smart idea to take a break from superhero movies a few months before starting a superhero podcast.
But the thing is, apart from Guardians of the Galaxy, I think your taking a break from superhero media has actually been you've picked a good time.
Yeah, because it's poor.
Yeah,
And
minus
terrible.
Guardians.
And I realised that this year, it sounds like Sony is going to just really make sure that superhero fatigue sets in by releasing 3 movies no one's ever asked for.
Yeah, we're not watching Madam Web because
No.
we don't want to.
I didn't want to when they announced it, let alone after I saw the straight-to-DVD-esque adverts.
There were admittedly some of the cast that probably were used as a big draw, but then I was hearing
Big draws.
a big draw, yeah, but
Big, voluptuous draws.
all right.
Well, that's what they're doing to them.
But it is true. It is true because apparently, they're only in like their costumes and stuff for like 5 seconds each. So those.
I don't care how many spoilers I hear because
Yeah, I've just been checking it out.
I have
So
no idea if they're real or not. I've heard some crazy stuff.
well, the Streets is saying that Streets is saying that the clips you see of them all in their Spider-Man costumes is pretty much like that's part of the one clip each of them has because it's part of like a dream sequence as well. They don't actually get powers in the movie.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe the break is a good idea, and I was kind of hoping I forgot about the Sony, Marvel, whatever they call it, the Sony Universe thing. I kind of thought actually 2024 will be a nice little breather, and then in 2025 we're getting Superman Legacy, we're getting Batman 2, we're getting what's the next Marvel movie?
Well, there's Deadpool later this year.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I'm moved by it.
We'll come to
You
that.
haven't seen Loki season 2 yet, have you? So all this TVA stuff is a bit over your head.
Yeah, I ain't got a clue. But yeah.
Yeah. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, we're getting back to that. We're going to look forward here. We're looking forward a few years, and I think probably the best place to start is kind of where is the DCU at the moment in terms of reputation? Where is? Yeah, I think my views are probably a bit more. I'm probably more biased. I'm probably more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. Not much. I'm probably 60% DC when I'm talking comics. 70% DC when I'm talking comics. And when it comes to movies, obviously, Marvel just got a monopoly in terms of quality. But I'm always quite apologist for DC movies. I don't know about you.
No. I will rag on them when they are bad. Because the thing is, like, I can enjoy bad movies, and I can enjoy bad movies when they know they're bad. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
And so, from the sounds of it, Madam Web doesn't know it's bad.
Okay.
Although it should. So I think there was this whole thing where Dakota Johnson or is it Adam Scott and Sydney Sweeney keep talking about like the MCU. So I think their agents have duped them into this movie, thinking that they're in an MCU movie for a start.
Brilliant! Why? That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So
they're expecting to see Tom Holland soon, and then they're just never gonna meet him.
No. So I think Sydney Sweeney had to actually delete something off her Instagram because it was something about the MCU.
So they haven't fed into the fact that this is a dumb premise. It's a silly movie. So it's bad because it doesn't know it's bad.
Yeah, like I feel quite bad because I remember, again, Sydney Sweeney was doing an interview about, is it Julia Carpenter? Her Spider-Woman is, she's like the second or third Spider-Woman, and then it's Anya Corazon who's like the fourth Spider-Woman, and I don't know who the other Spider-Woman is.
Yeah.
But she was like in the comics she's always like hanging upside down. So when I was on set, I suggested to like the stunt coordinators that like I do a lot of my scenes in the suit. Yeah. So it was like she's clearly thought she's joined the MCU and has put all this work into it, and it's just
prestige.
Yeah, and I think that's what if you are in the movie and you don't know what universe you're in, how is the general audience member supposed to distinguish that? And I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I guess the DC universe keeps changing. We've had The Rock try to change the universe, so he's doing something slightly different. We've had Henry Cavill been put in limbo forever. We've spoken about you've spoken about it, but you haven't recorded it apparently, about how Ben Affleck really tried to move it in one direction, it never came, and then Flashpoint, Suicide Squads, are they connected anymore? We don't know. Aquaman's doing great, and they want to give that time and space, but
that's for us, right?
and that's for us.
Because I have friends, so I have a mate, and he says he's quite into. He watches most of the Marvel movies, and he watches the DC movies. And a couple of years ago, he's like, I think it was after Endgame came out. Because, bro, I'm so excited to see what they're going to do next. Like, do you reckon they're going to roll in Superman? And I kind of looked at you like 1,000 yards, like that Kurt Angle video. And so, yeah, and it's like, this is a guy who's watched every Marvel movie and a bunch of the DC ones, and even he's not sure which characters belong to who. So people might be going to watch Black Adam thinking that this is also
a Marvel movie. Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's definitely something like that.
Yeah, I feel like less people than there were maybe like 10 years ago.
But I'll tell you what, though, that's an indicator to me, and also part of my frustrations, that really and truly, when people think of superheroes, generally they think about DC characters. Up until 10, 15 years ago, Superman is the superhero. I think
it's Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. I think Superman is for all ages. I think Batman is perhaps for all ages, but when you ask a kid who they want to dress up as, like 100% is Spider-Man every time.
And ask anyone on the street, name a female superhero.
Yeah, but
Wonder Woman.
Would they say Wonder Woman? Do you think?
You name another one.
What? Just. Well, no, because I was going to say Black Widow is probably the one in everyone's consciousness.
Yeah, but like I said,
because of the movies.
I imagine that no one who doesn't read a comic had heard of Black Widow 15 years ago.
I think in terms of for their whole existences, DC has done a lot better in having more prominent female characters. One of whom is relevant to your script as well as James Gunn's.
Yeah, as well as James Gunn's.
Yeah.
So and I guess that's So they've got huge names with this cultural capital behind it, and they just haven't really used it well. The fact there was never a Superman sequel really was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
I think the quality of movies has fluctuated wildly from some of the worst I've ever seen, Wonder Woman 84, to some of the best I've ever seen, like Wonder Woman. Like,
without trying to be a revisionist, were they ever consistently that good?
No, they were never consistently good.
Yeah.
I think they have good ones dotted in between.
And
just good ones.
I think that's, for me, you'd get one, outpush 1 or 2 good Marvel movies a year, right? And I don't really think that's changed. When you think about it, before Avengers, Iron Man 1, great movie. Iron Man 2, not so great movie. Iron Man 3, I think it's a pretty okay movie, but generally regarded as also not a very good movie. Thor 1, not a very good movie. Thor 2, not a very good movie.
Worse than 1.
Oh, that's after Avengers, actually. Yeah. So leading up to Avengers, you have... And Captain America 1.
It was good.
I think so. But I remember kind of around that time, a lot of people kind of just like, it was just exciting because you could tell they were doing something.
This is it.
So I think people were able to overlook like the mediocre quality of some of the movies because
it was a clear plan.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference now that you have this disorder, and you didn't finish Secret Invasion, did you?
I did.
Oh, you did, but you haven't seen the Marvels.
I haven't seen the Marvels.
Yeah, and that was it. Which, by the way, I think is a good movie.
Okay.
I really enjoyed. But Nick Fury's in it, but you don't know whether this is before Secret Invasion or after Secret Invasion. And the whole thing is that the first thing they do in the Marvels as a trio is they save a colony of Skrulls, right? And then Nick Fury rehomes them.
Okay.
But the last piece of media we've seen leading up to this
says they Skrulls are outlawed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense.
So it's all just modelled. So it's and to be fair, this is how I felt, which is superhero universes now are almost episodic, and I don't mind watching 1 or 2 filler episodes.
Yep.
If the other episodes are worth the payoff.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it feels a little bit like Marvel's going into the stage DC was in, where there is no payoff to the filler episodes, and there's a lot of filler episodes at the moment.
Well, the thing is, for me, like Shang-Chi,
good,
great, and it's not really linked to anything else.
No.
Those bands might have something to do with something in the post-credit scene, but the movie is just about Shang-Chi, yeah. And so, like, that's fine for me. Mm-hmm. And I think the Marvels could work by itself and should work by itself, but it's linked
to too much.
Yeah, Captain Marvel's whole first story and the whole reason she wasn't in the movies is because she's been helping out the Skrulls. Mm. And you find out. Are you gonna watch the Marvels? Yeah. I'll wait till you watch it. Yeah, we'll wait till you watch it. But yeah, it's important. Like, it's all related to the Krees and the Skrulls. Yet, there's no bearing on that in Secret Invasion either. Like, why is she not coming back to sort this out if this is a whole thing she's been doing for 25 years?
So are you're basically saying and it's just muddled now.
So I agree with you. It could work, and I think that's what DC's probably looking like it's gonna do. So
bringing stuff together, or
so like with the Authority, we're starting with that, and that kind of seems like it's nothing to do with anything. Yes. But really, I imagine that's gonna tie in to Superman's story, and it looks like Superman's gonna be sort of like the linchpin for this whole first slate of movies.
As it should have been before, really. Because I stand by stand by the opinion that if you look at ratios, I think DC has probably as many good movies as Marvel has good movies. Marvel's good movies are better than DC's good movies. And DC's worst movies or bad movies are worse than Marvel's bad movies.
So are you saying Marvel has more good movies than DC, but they also have more bad movies than DC? Because just by virtue of they've released so many movies. But
I'd say their bad movies are 2 stars, whilst DC's movies are 1 stars, and DC's good movies are maybe 4 stars, and Marvel's good movies are 4.5, 5 stars.
I think there's something to be taken from a lot of the bad DC movies. So actually no, Wonder Woman 2 was really, really bad. Really actually bad.
Terrible bad.
Yeah, it just makes you think, what are you doing? And I think what they were just trying to do it like Marvel, but I think when they first announced that this universe was starting in 2025, I was like, oh dude, what's the hold up? No. But I think about it, and someone brought it up the other day, like the relationship between Reed Richards and Tony Stark, but also that Johnny Storm and Spider-Man are kind of like maybe 3 or 4 years apart, and so they're meant to be good friends. Mm-hmm. But the dude they just cast as Johnny Storm, Joseph Quinn, is like in his 30s. Yeah. And Tom Holland's supposed to be playing an 18-year-old about to go to college.
Yeah, well, Tom Holland is also 27.
That is true. So maybe Joseph Quinn could be playing younger, but Pedro Pascal's 50? And Vanessa Kirby's 35. The point I'm trying to make is that in the comics, you have all these great dynamics between characters, but because of the way the Marvel movies have been released, they'll never be able to interact with each other. Like Cyclops facing off against Captain America. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
so planning it all in advance is what I'm saying. You can, and you're talking about Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, some of these like C-list characters. Some Blue Beetle and Booster Gold fans will be happy about that. But getting these guys all in at once means that you can do more stories beyond what we've already seen, like with existing relationships. Yeah.
So you need that palette cleanser and that times, I think, at the same time.
That's it. So I think coming at this from afresh and you have it all lined up until maybe 2027, you can really, I think, do a lot and plan it out better.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what made the MCU successful.
Yeah.
It was a clear plan.
Because it seemed like they only started planning after Endgame once it was coming up.
And partly what made the DCU unsuccessful, there wasn't a clear plan. Took 7 years to create a Flash movie after it was announced. Justice League. I don't know if I'm happy or sad that they kind of bottled it in the final minute, but the cinematic release didn't stand by the plan.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, Batman and Superman by the creators of Batman vs Superman also knew that it was too early for that, but they were forced to make it. So we probably got Zaslav to thank for that, but hopefully, we'll come on to it a bit later, but hopefully James Gunn will kind of have the clout and the backbone to kind of stand up to it and be like, actually, no, we're going to do it this way and just stand by the process.
I saw something and I forgot to write it down. Henry Cavill has been reportedly cast as someone in the MCU, and it looks like they're doing a swap deal. So James Gunn is kind of taking these guys who he put in his Guardians movies.
Transferred.
Because I think Will Poulter as Booster Gold, looks wise, and I think he can be very charismatic as well.
Okay. Well, so we'll come on
yeah,
to that.
sorry.
We'll
That's
come on to that,
yeah.
Actually,
Digressing.
Fun to see kind of where we go with that. And I think actually James Gunn, when I heard James Gunn was taking charge of the MCU, I was a little bit concerned. And if I'm honest, it was just based off his track record of movies. I was worried because he says he loves comics, and I can tell he knows his stuff. Like, he actually has clearly grown up with comics. But his track record to me shows of someone who loves reading comics, but then actually sees their ideas as superior.
I don't know. The Guardians movies felt like comics to me.
Well, now this is where I was clearly wrong, because I was basing my opinions off Guardians 1 and 2. I was basing my opinion off Brightburn, off Suicide Squad, and I was a little bit like, can I trust this guy with the linchpin characters? Can I trust him with the heavy hitters of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, to a lesser extent, I guess, Flash, Green Lantern, because he's done really well with characters that don't have as much lore behind them. Like, Peacemaker's come out of nowhere, Bloodsport's come out of nowhere, the Guardians came out of nowhere, and when he has done a Superman movie, it's another Superman turns evil, and I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing the Superman turns evil movie.
But I've not seen that, but apparently he does do it well, because that's also a comic, isn't it? So it's adapted from or graphic novel.
And I can't dispute he does do everything well, to be fair. But I was just a bit like, we spoke about it, didn't we, on our top 10 comic movies? We want earnestness out of Superman, and I hadn't seen earnestness out of James Gunn until last week.
Talk to us. What did you see?
Well, that movie, we need to redo our first episode, because that movie's in my top 10. Easy.
It was in mine.
No, it was in yours.
And you didn't.
You were right.
You weren't sure why it was in mine.
Because I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Bro, that movie is incredible. Had everything. The comedy was good. Action was good. Visuals were amazing. And the earnestness was there. The focusing on Rocket Raccoon, I didn't realise would have such a... I didn't realise that'd be as impactful as it was. The way in which the villain was directed was incredible. I have feelings for a ferret with ugly arms, a walrus, and a rabbit. Like,
they're all very gross looking.
Very gross looking, but like the emotional tie he was able to build up with them to us very, very quickly was nuts. He made the shout out to the High Evolutionary. Forgive me, I don't know what his actor's name is. Find out quick.
Yeah, he's a Nigerian fella, I think.
Excellent performance. It was like menacing, maniacal, but also you could kind of, there was still that kind of, there's a hint of whimsical in it, because we have to admit that it's a comic book, and it was also a little bit of a crazy idea. But the idea of this guy who calls himself God, do you want to try to pronounce that?
Chukwudu Iwuji.
Chukwudu Iwuji needs like props. That was an incredible performance. One of the best villains the MCU's had. Just the whole movie was just brilliant. From borderline flawless. I feel kind of bad for him that he clearly didn't want Gamora to die in Endgame. Or in Infinity War. I can tell by the way it's written that he was kind of annoyed at that. But he managed that really well, so he can work within the universe.
And I to be honest, I he can work within the universe, I think, but when the universe is working for him because Gamora dying doesn't really make much sense. It's clear Zoe Saldana didn't necessarily want to leave because she still came back for Guardians 3. So I think that might be the reason why he left. Because if someone's messing you about, you're doing so well. You know, imagine I don't know, if you were like coaching a basketball team and then one of your best players gets traded, you're just kind of like, whoa. So if then you could go to a team where you're in control of the trades and the team, you would just do that. And that's what I'm saying. I think he has a very clear plan, and he's been very intentional about it all, and he's bringing some good actors, and assumedly, and is talking about bringing Phil Lord and Chris Miller, which would also be great, because they were supposed to do The Flash at one point. I think it was them.
Yes, they were.
Yeah,
they were.
Early on.
6 directors.
Yeah, I think they were. I think they may have been even like the first or second one. But anyway, I'd love to see what they do. And by the way, it was Cyclops. I heard Henry Cavill being rumored as being cast as, which I think would work well. But yeah, like I think he's got it. I think he understands how to make a comic book on screen, but not make it look bad. I think sometimes with Zack Snyder, it's Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch. The Girls in the Asylum. That was kind of, it just looked kind of weird because he was doing the sort of like mad color palettes and outfits and weapons and stylized action, but like also not fully committing to the wackiness of it. A lot of the colors are washed.
Yeah, being muted.
Yeah, it just kind of then feels like one big nightmare, which I suppose is the idea of the film, but then things like 300 and whatnot.
Didn't need to look like a big nightmare. Like,
yeah, make it pop a little bit. Yeah.
Man is still...
Everything's washed.
It's a small detail, but the fact the blue and the red are so muted kind of shows that he kind of got the tone of Superman a little bit wrong.
But I think there's room for stuff like that, because if the whole movie is kind of muted and then it's Superman's or his outfit, that is like the
brighter.
The colour popping, and then perhaps in the next movie when we have Superman and his scenes, more colour, Batman scenes is still you know,
it reflects the character.
It does and can work. And the thing is, Zack Snyder is a very clever guy, and like I think, you know, he had a plan, whether you like it or not, for the DC universe, but obviously Warner Brothers do kind of just stick their nose in a lot and try and intervene. So I do empathise that is kind of what stopped his plan from being realised. But I'm sure it would have looked good and the action would have been great. But in my opinion, I'm kind of glad that we've had some time away and that the story can probably go in a bit more of a traditional direction.
Yeah.
Because what he had was crazy and cool, but we haven't even seen the normal version of that yet. So why do I want to see an alternative version already?
Yeah, we need, and I think we'll come back to this later when we talk about like our hopes for certain movies. But there is definitely a need for what it appears like the direction James Gunn's going in. And that needs kind of being ignored for a little while in terms of what we want out of our comic book movies and our superhero movies. And I think he got that out of 3. I think that's probably why Guardians kind of stands out from last year. It has the colour, it has the earnestness, it admits it's a comic book movie, but it's proud of the fact it's a comic book movie. It's proud of its source material, as niche as it might be. And yeah, I have nothing negative to say about that movie, to be honest. I don't think it's my favourite, I don't think it's perfect, but everything it did well.
I think for me the only thing is, and I watched it in the cinema, so everyone was laughing when they were supposed to laugh. It's just a personal note. I think some of the stuff is just a little like I you know, it could be laid back a bit, but there are certain characters in the way he's done Star-Lord as well that would be like Star-Lord, where that's perfect. You know, if you're talking about like Nightwing or someone like cracking jokes, that's the whole shtick. That's fine.
Yeah, and even in the Suicide Squad, which is obviously a DC movie he's already made, there are jokes that don't land for me, but landed for others. So I have to just be like,
you can't really hate it. It's just more of a personal gripe. I think for me, the thing I really like is that the movie could be really, really cringy. Like, You know, they've all got their costumes on.
Mm.
They all keep saying that they're the Guardians of the Galaxy, that they're a family and whatnot. And I think if you don't earn the right to do that through good character development, that then kind of sucks.
Yeah, because and maybe that's the secret behind a great comic book movie is, especially with older characters, you have to toe the line between cringy and actual emotional impact really, really well. And it can be so easy to dip into cringe. But like you said, with the good writing, that's how you kind of toe that line. When you build up the connection with those characters, that's how you stay above that line.
I think, you have to as well be mindful that you need to reintroduce the character and work for it. If you've got Superman, everyone knows who Superman is, but just because they know that, you can't rely on that to be some sort of like emotional currency for people to be invested in him. You have to re-earn it.
We know the origin story.
Yeah.
What is your Superman going to be though? We know the origins. We didn't know the origin story of Rocket Raccoon, so you can give us that origin story, and that helps us build into that character. We don't need the origin story for Batman. We don't need the origin story for Spider-Man, because that's modern day folklore. Use the origin stories to help build up the character, not build up just the story, the plot. And I thought he did that really well. We still don't have an origin story for Drax. We don't. Well,
that's in one.
The origin story is 30 seconds long.
Yeah, but that's all you need to know.
That's all you need.
But also, like, you can see how, not because I think sometimes it's that, okay, this is what shaped this superhero and made them so great. In this instance, this is what makes them so flawed.
Yeah.
Like, and it makes them feel a lot more human, even though it's a raccoon and a giant purple dude. You know.
Yeah.
And I think even with Mantis, you haven't seen the Christmas special. I don't know if you're gonna watch it.
I don't know. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, basically it's just about how she is also Ego's daughter. So that's why he says that they're sisters. Yeah. And so she goes to Earth and kidnaps Kevin Bacon as a Christmas present for Star-Lord. And that's it. Basically, that's the whole thing. But like that also, it's also really fun. But that's why it's good to see her go out on her own, because she's always had a dependency on someone that she has to look after or do stuff for, and has to care for her. And so I think it's really good, and there's opportunities to do that with every single character. And I think as comics have gone on, we've been able to see a lot more of the vulnerabilities of characters.
Yeah, and we see it. We'll be able to see it from the start. And I think the fact that, he's been able... The Drax origin story was 30 seconds long, but it came back into play in Guardians 3 when he's been able to interact with the kids and talks about how he wants to be a father now. And I think that's a benefit of having that consistent vision of one guy directing and writing it from start to finish.
Yep. Like right with Star Wars.
like they did with Star Wars, to an extent, like they did with the MCU as well at the start. So from what I hear, directors say actually they come on and they just do little bits and bobs, but the story's made. This is Kevin Feige's story. They've got a behind the scenes thing about how much they render, and I think he talks about how it used to be like maybe something like 40%, then it went to 60%. And then it went to like an even higher amount. So you kind of come on board and you really just like, it's almost like trying to replicate just what you see on the screen. Yeah. So. Well, look, the reason we wanted to make this, or the reason I definitely wanted to make this, is because I have been hacked. I know it, and the story behind why I wasted hours of my life doing this was because myself and the third brother were quite frustrated that Henry Cavill wasn't getting any more movies, and we love Superman in this household, and he was just being wasted for too long. So we spent a year actually writing 3 Superman scripts. We wanted there to be a trilogy of sequels. And as certain rumours and certain castings are slowly being released about James Gunn's Superman Legacy movie, the more I'm like, this looks familiar. So, yeah, I wanted your thoughts actually, Judo, because I don't think you've read these scripts. I know Third Brother has.
Yeah, I've skimmed the first one a little bit, but really but that was only like the first half of it as well. So I have not heard them all, which is an opportunity for you to sort of debut them on the pod if you want.
Yeah, so here they are. So I even titled the movies. So this is sequel number 1. So the second Superman movie, and it is going to be called The Last Son of Krypton.
Woo!
The Last Son of Krypton kind of starts out... right, so we thought for this first one, we need to kind of readjust the tone of Superman. And we thought the best way to do that was kind of readjust Jonathan Kent. Make him a little less dour, a little more hopeful. Let's start seeing Superman save some people's lives. Right?
Nice.
So, right. The opening scene was the bit that me and Third Brother were really, really excited about. We kind of started like patting each other on the back when we did this. So we've got a wide shot of an alien city. We're overlooking Kandor, right? This is clearly a flashback here. This is Kandor, bustling city. It's clearly like the cultural, economic, whatever centre of Krypton. And then we kind of intersperse it with what's going on in Metropolis. So we've got Metropolis in daytime, with intercut with shots of Kandor during the daytime, and a young Kara L?
Zor-El.
Zor-El. So I've messed it up already. So a young Kara Zor-El is basically just hanging around in her apartment. She's probably a young teen. She's hanging out with her father. And then all of a sudden, there's an attack on the city. There's an alien force which is attacking the city. And then we kind of cut that in with a shot of kind of like Star Labs in Metropolis. That is then attacked by, we've got in this script, Atomic Skull. So Atomic Skull is going to be our villain of the week, our filler villain, our fodder villain. So Atomic Skull is after something in Star Labs. He's kind of breaking down the buildings, breaking into the laboratories. He's shouting, he's angry, he wants something.
Sorry, quickly. This is the second one.
The second one.
Is this the first or the second one?
This is the first sequel. So we've written this for Henry Cavill.
Right.
We wrote
Okay.
this for Henry Cavill.
So it would be the second movie, but it's the first of your 3 movies. Right.
So, so we then start seeing that Kara Zor-El and her father are running through the streets of Kandor. They're trying to escape something, and Kara's father is confident that he knows where he can go. So he starts running towards his lab. With Kara in hand, and the city is crashing down around them. At the same time, just on the outside of Star Labs, the atomic beams that blasts is causing rubble and destruction outside of Star Labs, and there's we want a father and son on the outside who's basically trying their best to survive and avoid the falling rubble and debris. We then get into back to Kandor. We're back in Zor-El's lab. And we're then going to do almost the same origin that Superman would have had. He's doing what he can to try and get in an alien ship so that he's realised that Kandor is lost and there's only one way out of this. So he's trying to get Kara into a rocket. Kara's initially thinking that she's going to be joined by her father. Same sort of thing. The rubble is really, really falling. In Metropolis, the father looks at the son and thinks, "All right, all hope is lost. We're done now. I'm just going to do what I can to try and protect you and make you feel like you're going to be okay." Cut back to Kandor, and Kara's come to the realization now that she's going to lose her father, but she's going to be saved, and he's sacrificed himself for her. She goes off on the rocket. The last thing she sees is Kandor basically being encased in something.
Right.
And then we go back to the streets of Metropolis, and then we have the father who's accepted his own fate to save his son. But then Superman comes in and saves the father as well. Kind of deals with the villain of the week. Kind of throws Atomic Skull out. I don't want to go through every single minor detail. Throws Atomic Skull out. We think Atomic Skull is dealt with for the moment. Superman's doing the clear up, trying to help the people he can help, and then he does that thing where he hears something in the distance, realizes there's a meteor coming down just outside of Metropolis, and he goes to intercept it. It wasn't a meteor.
Spaceship.
Kara's spaceship, and that's where the story begins. And so the idea around this movie was essentially to have Superman teaching Kara the lessons of what it's like to have unlimited power, but still accept the inevitability of death, of failure, of the fact that they won't be able to save everyone. And he's going to be doing that by kind of relaying the teachings of his father, or his adopted father, Jonathan Kent. So there's going to be a lot of flashbacks. There's going to be a lot of Martha also teaching up Kara. There's going to be, we kind of thought about having scenes where Kara was initially kind of, her anger and her frustration at not being able to save everything kind of led her towards wanting to be trained up by Wonder Woman. So it would feed into the wider universe a little bit. But actually then realising that Wonder Woman and the Amazonians have to resort to certain tactics because they don't have the unlimited power that Superman and Kara have. And that all comes into play, and it all comes into fruition when essentially we get Brainiac. He's now come to Earth. Obviously he's got the encased city of Kandor. But as we know from the comics, the film will end with Kara's acceptance that although they have all the power in the world, there's still some things they can't do, like being able to free Kandor. At this point, anyway. So Kandor is trapped forever.
Did they get it back in this movie?
Yeah. So they'll defeat Brainiac. They'll save Metropolis from being encased itself. Save Metropolis from being encased itself. But then they still have to accept that actually the cities he's already attacked, we can't reverse that. There's certain things we still can't do, but there's things we can do to stop things from happening in the future. That was kind of like lesson one from Superman, that he's going to do absolutely everything he can to save everyone he can, but he has to deal with the difficulties and the hardship of actually he can't save everyone. It's still difficult. That was Last Son of Krypton. And kind of then feeds into the wider universe. We've then got things coming out of Star Labs. We've got Supergirl introduced. Great stuff, hopefully.
Well, we'll see, because Zack Snyder stole the script. Sorry, James Gunn stole the script.
Then we've got the sequel to that, Truth, Justice, and the American Way.
Yep, you can figure that one out, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it is a pretty standard kind of retelling of the story.
Right.
And now this is where I think James Gunn's acting, definitely. So we've got Millie Hitchcock as Supergirl. She's been cast.
So, Alcott? I can't remember.
House of Dragon.
Yeah, because I've only seen her as
yeah. So he has a Supergirl. We know that.
Yeah. Okay.
We've got an Authority. So I didn't know anything about the Authority before they were cast. I had to look into them, to be honest.
Right.
But
it's Wildstorm, isn't it?
From what I know about them now, it feels a little bit like they're gonna end up being James Gunn's version of the Elite.
Yep.
And so my story was going to be very much about Superman versus the Elite, and how there are these new superheroes on the scene. People are kind of tired of the fact that Superman is just kind of just dealing with the villain of the week, and they keep coming back, and there isn't a permanent solution. And then as we know, the Elite come in. They don't have any issues with using lethal force and using more aggressive tactics. And the story around this one, if you want to know what the script kind of looks like, just read Truth, Justice, and the American Way, because it will be kind of like a truer telling of that. I think we've tried to kind of build up the universe and build up the characters to be able to kind of tell that in as true a way as possible. But then obviously the theme from this movie would be very much this is why I do things the way I do, because we have to be better than what we're fighting against.
Yeah.
And that will kind of rise Superman as this symbol of hope. And I think what was great about some of the Captain America movies, for example, was that actually he was someone that did good no matter what, and why that was important to the rest of the Avengers, to the rest of the Marvel Universe, as like a symbol. And I think Superman should be something like that.
Yeah, I feel like no matter who he's fighting, if it is the Authority or if it's the Elite, it can't just be like, oh, I beat them and I humiliated them. It has to be like a moral victory as well. There has to be a point that he's making about why it's better to do things his way and to be like him than it is to be like the Elite. Like, we have to see, like in a Marvel, not like in a Marvel movie, sorry, where the villain's making a really, really good point, and then like Falcon and Winter Soldier, yeah, these refugee camps are really bad, yeah, but I'm also going to blow up.
Yeah.
Like, so it can't be like that. The villains have to maintain their point, and we have to kind of be like, well, this makes sense.
This is the dip, yeah.
But Superman makes more sense.
Yeah, exactly. We want to be on his side.
Yeah.
Even through the difficulty, because that's what he has to do. He has to make difficult decisions that mean that he can retain who he is and what he means to other people. And what we've done throughout these movies is we've teased him, but we've actively avoided him, because there have been 7 or 8 Superman movies, and somehow he's managed to be in 5 of them, 6 of them. Lex Luthor is going to be the main villain of the final Superman movie that we wrote, which was Man of Tomorrow. So Lex Corp's being teased kind of throughout the movies, but never kind of explicitly dealt with. We've kind of avoided Lex Luthor for as much as possible. But what we find out in Man of Tomorrow is essentially it is just going to be the usual dynamic between the two. Lex Luthor is jealous of what Superman's become. As far as Lex Luthor is concerned, he's the smartest, richest, fittest a man can be.
Most American.
The most American. But he's still not Superman and never will be.
Yeah.
And that is mainly because he has that jealousy within him. So throughout the other 2 movies, what we find out in Man of Tomorrow is that as time's been going on, Lex Luthor's been doing what he can to create a team that basically can beat Superman.
Right.
So we're going to have Bizarro, we're going to have Metallo, we're going to have Parasite. And their origin story is going to be linked into basic experiments that Lex Luthor's been doing to find ways to beat him. So it's basically going to be those 4 villains up against Superman, and about how Superman can kind of defeat those odds and what lengths he can go to try and deal with that adversity, but still retain who he is, and how he's going to deal with people that are genuinely just built to destroy him.
Is Lex Luthor suiting up?
Yeah, he's suiting up.
Good.
Gotta have him suited up.
I think that's my favourite thing. I think I don't like when it's just like, oh, he's orchestrating this stuff from behind, because the point is, like, he's narcissistic, like he's so egotistical. He has to be able to beat Superman himself. Yeah. He has to be able to fight Superman, on Superman's terms, instead of just... I think that was my main gripe with Batman v Superman, because it felt more like something, perhaps a Batman villain, or like a Hugo Strange or something would orchestrate. Excuse me, as opposed to something Lex Luthor would do. Lex Luthor's overt, like, exactly. He wants everyone to know. He wants Superman to know who he is, how he's doing it, how he's going to beat him.
And so, the theme around this movie as well is actually what you can do as a community if you are doing the right thing. If you're the symbol for that community, if you're the leader of that community, and you are pushing the right messages.
Yeah.
What you get in return, and not that you should do things for the idea of for the promise of a return, but actually do things altruistically, and you realise how that will improve your life. Because when Superman's going to get defeated, or when Superman is beaten in the first or second act where he first meets these villains. There's going to be like a... Remember the New York moment in Spider-Man 1?
Oh, yeah.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. There's going to be a lot of that in this movie where actually there are humans who would deal with Metallo better than Superman would be able to deal with Metallo.
Mm.
There are going to be humans who can deal with Parasite better than Superman can deal with Parasite.
Right.
So it's not just about how strong can Superman be, but it's also how strong has Superman made the people around him. How strong has Superman made Metropolis? And yeah, that's the idea.
Kind of like Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. Remember that animated movie?
Yeah. So a bit like that. I guess the fight scene in Washington DC, where he's up against loads of different villains, will be a bit like that. But I didn't really use that one as inspiration because Lex Luthor's not going to be president. In that movie, I don't think there was much interaction with the public really.
It
wasn't
like that.
I don't really want Superman to have Wonder Woman come in. I don't want Superman to have Batman come in. Like, I think I'd rather it be the characters he's built up throughout. So the Jimmy Olsens, the Supergirls, Guardians, Double X, those sorts of characters that Superman would usually interact with.
Crypto the Superdog?
I always thought Crypto the Superdog would be a bit too wacky for film, but I don't see why not.
Well, they had Cosmo and a Space Dog, so James Gunn could do it.
He do dogs.
Would do it.
Well. He does do dogs well. But yeah, so those were my 3 movies. That was the 3 movies that me and Third Brother wrote about 18 months ago, summer of 22.
Well, to be honest,
I tell you what though, the scripts aren't good. They end up being more ideas. I had a much more appreciation for writers and directors because things take time, man.
you always need a first draft, so you've got to start from somewhere.
Well, it's hard, man, because it's a lot of work.
I think your scripts, they do work for Henry Cavill, but...
As a fresh? Yeah.
No, I'm saying, that wasn't meant to be, I think, but I think they also could work for that, because a bit like with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, do you necessarily need... So I think later on in Tom Holland's series, it could have benefited from some flashbacks with an Uncle Ben.
Yeah, maybe.
But no one was kind of like, oh no, we don't get to see Spider-Man's origin again. It's just nice to see him in the early stages.
Like in the Batman movie, there wasn't a pills on the floor sequence, really. Didn't need it.
No, there wasn't. Sorry, I was thinking of Batman v Superman then.
Yeah. And even then, they did that quickly. So superheroes are modern day folklore. You didn't need to tell a kid 20 years ago what's the story of Hansel and Gretel. You didn't need to tell them what's the story of Red Riding Hood. Everyone just knows it, and you can kind of use that to your advantage when writing about these big characters now. Yeah,
and I think sometimes there's like we found out with Guardians 3, there's a bit more power to having a like flashback. The flashbacks reveal the origin. I was trying to think of a movie I watched. It was a part 1, Rebel Moon. That was it. And the thing is, my thing is with Rebel Moon is that every single character we meet, we get like a full backstory for them off the bat, and then we get to see them fight. And I think that works. But when you're doing that with what I think was 6 characters, maybe 7, that's why you need a part 1 and a part 2. But I think perhaps sometimes there's something, like we said, there's a bit more power in why is this person like this for 1, 2, 3 movies, and then everyone gets their time to shine throughout the series as opposed to that, all being laid out.
That movie is epitome of misunderstanding what show don't tell that advice is meant to be, whereas because the visuals of those origin stories are nice, they think that doesn't count as a tell. When actually what they're doing is just telling with pretty pictures. And really what they could do is show whatever the general was called, show him just being an alcoholic, and throughout the rest of the story we kind of discover why he is the way he is, because he's lost these battles and was close to a rebellion and whatever. And actually taking 2 minutes out of the rest of the story to deal with origins, or in the case of a lot of superhero movies recently, taking half an hour out of the rest of the story just so you can do an origin, to do the origin of the character, means you actually are just telling rather than showing, even if it has got pretty visuals.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's where we kind of left it, and yeah, maybe it is. But like I said, by no means is my script going to be anywhere as good as what James Gunn will have. But he has hacked me and stolen my ideas.
Crook. We'll be seeing you in court, James.
So I think the reason why we wrote that was because we wanted to see DC finally get like a cohesive direction and go in a certain way that I think fans and mainstream watchers would be able to appreciate. And as we kind of have discussed, I do think James Gunn can actually do that and at least make it consistent.
Yeah, and I don't agree with the consensus of always making it adult, but I think there's an opportunity here as well to have somewhat of a more mature tone, which can allow for some deeper levels of storytelling. I think a lot of the Marvel stories that have been done that might have, I think of Thor Ragnarok always, because his dad dies, he finds out he has a sister, he loses his kingdom, he loses his eye, but the mood is just too light throughout.
Yeah.
Because really, if you were to stop and focus on that, that's really, really sad.
Through everything.
Yeah. And so we see, but then when we see that he finally does process these emotions in the next movie, it's a joke.
Yeah.
He's just playing Fortnite. He's fat. So it's kind of like, well, that could have been handled a lot more interestingly.
Exactly.
And I think if you manage to keep it, if you manage to get the scales for the different types of heroes right, so this is kind of what I would say is my main hope for these movies, is that it's all segmented. So I remember it was like, like the Defenders are street level, the Avengers are world level, and then they're going to do, is it Sword or whatever, and they're going to do all the cosmic threats of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But that's all just been blended into one anyway. Like the Defenders aren't a thing. There's no Avengers. It's just a bunch of different people mixing it up. I think there's an opportunity to have a strict Justice League.
Yeah.
And I love Young Justice and I love Justice League Unlimited. So I think having like affiliates works. But you can have like the Teen Titans or Titans, because people love the Titans show.
Yeah, the people who watch Titans now are adult. They're people who are buying tickets. And
you can make the Titans adult. I mean, I still get my Titans weekly now. I don't read Teen Titans anymore because I've kind of just grown out of it. But it's quite funny. That tweet thread where it's like, name something that's really good when you haven't got someone squawking in your ear telling you it's awful. And like I saw a couple of people say Titans, like they love it. And you can have, the Justice League in space, the Teen Titans or whatever, the Titans collected protecting the planet, and have your ground level guys, your Batman Incorporated, your Teen Titans and whatnot, kind of cutting around doing their thing street level, and you can deal with different levels of tones. Teen Titans can be more geared towards younger people, Justice League can be geared towards maybe general audiences, and Titans can be geared towards young adults and adults.
It could be across the board.
Yeah.
So I guess that right. So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about what are our hopes gonna like. What's some really specific things you really want to see from the DCU over the next, I don't know how many years they're going to do it for, but yeah, what would you like to see? What's a little thing that'll make you really happy?
I want to see Deathstroke be a Titans villain.
All right, okay. So Titans got to be in there.
Yeah. I want to see them, and I think that's the way it's going, because if you've got a Supergirl, we've got some Robins casted, and I hope that
we've got Robins casted.
No, not casted, but they're being casted. So it's going to be Damian Wayne. So assumedly there's going to be Tim Drake. I can take or leave every time. Yeah. I'm not fussed, but I think Jason Todd is very important. And in fact, I read it was a short. It was the Robin 80th anniversary issue, and it's just literally a story about how Jason Todd had found Bruce's dad's watch.
Okay.
And he'd repaired it for one of Bruce's birthdays when he was like 12, 13. And he was like, but it only ticks when you wear it, so I need to figure out how to do it properly. And then obviously Jason died a bit after that. And it's just a story about Jason watching Batman. He sneaks and leaves the watch on the Batmobile. And then Batman still remembers, like, that's that from like 10 years ago. That's short. Yeah, so
the Robins are crucial. I forgot that they were doing that Batman and Sons movie, because actually one of my hopes was also I want to see a Bat Family.
Yeah. So
yeah,
we're there on that together. Yeah, so that's my first one. As I said, probably Will Poulter as Booster Gold. I think he just really looks the part, and because he just looks like such a Giga Chad now, like he could really play it.
Yeah.
And obviously Booster Gold, when he's by himself, is a lot less self-assured and very much suffering from imposter syndrome. I think he's got the range to really do that. And then so as I said, like I think Deathstroke has really got to be a Titans villain. There's got to be Titans, but he's not a Batman villain.
No.
It's cool when he fights Batman, but it's not. There's plenty of other people Batman can fight. Slade has to hate the Titans. He has to hate Robin.
Hopefully not as much as he did in the comics.
No.
We can tone that one down a little bit.
No, I want it.
You want that
Mate, do you even remember the Teen Titans TV show?
Yeah.
Do you remember how Robin was having nightmares that he was seeing Slade? He was like punching air. That's what I want. I want Slade ruining these guys' lives, and like they may be adults now, so I just love some flashbacks. Like he's got the like.
He's got it. They're in their head.
Yeah, I want to see like that's what I said about maturity, because I want to see how being a hero can affect people. These guys have been heroes since they were kids. There's a grown man been trying to kill them their whole lives. Like, and they're inadvertently responsible for the death of his son.
Yeah.
And so I want to see them be self-assured people. I want them to be confident, and then as soon as Slade enters the picture, pandemonium. Yeah. So that's it. That's like the three things I want to see. I just want to see Slade ruin their lives. So.
Okay. I was a little more vague. Well, one really specific. There are certain things I think we need to retain from the previous DCU.
Yep.
I think there's going to be. Sounds like Blue Beetle's going to stay.
Yeah.
Sounds like Peacemaker's going to stay.
We don't have that in this country, do we? So I've not seen it.
Yeah,
it's only on HBO Max.
He didn't stand out to me in Suicide Squad, but apparently it's very good. But one thing, and I'm hoping that Peacemaker staying means this will be the case. I don't think you can cast a better Harley Quinn than Margot Robbie.
No.
So I think you should try and retain her as much as possible.
Fair.
This is just for me.
Yeah.
Because I just think they're some of the best actors in the world at the moment, and they're just not getting the commercial love. Just give Dev Patel and give Riz Ahmed a role. I don't care what it is, but just give him a nice big role. Alright?
Mate.
That's all I want.
Dev Patel.
What, that Monkey Man thing?
Well, firstly, that looks good. But I saw this a couple of years ago when he first grew his hair out.
Yeah.
Dev Patel Nightwing.
Okay,
he's tall. He's slim. He can get beat, and he's put a bit of mass on.
Thing,
he doesn't need to be a gymnast either. Like you can that's what stunt doubles are for. Yeah. So like I would love that, because ultimately it doesn't matter. Well, I know Nightwing's supposed to be Romani, so that might pose a bit of a.
Well, the thing with the Romanis and the Gypsies is that actually they originated from Northern India. I'm not trying to erase that entire ethnicity.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of a.
I mean, there's centuries of history which nowadays, but I can see that.
But if you're not wed to that, because I don't know any Romani actors. Every time I see a fan cast as well, they usually kind of just go for white guys. Yeah. They don't really. I don't know if there's any of prominence, and also Cillian Murphy keeps being cast as Romani. Whatever.
Interesting.
But like I would love that. I think. And he's witty, but you can also have that sort of bit of anger and a bit of resentment about being in Batman's shadow, or feeling like Batman doesn't trust him enough to.
He's a top actor.
Yeah.
Riz Ahmed, he just got unlucky that one of the best performances ever was the same year as like another amazing performance.
What, in Venom?
Nah. I forgot using that. I watched Sound of Metal, and I think everything he does amazingly, to be honest. So I'd love to see those acting chops come into the DCU, and they could be so good, and I think it needs to be done right. I want to see Green Lantern movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to build up the Green Lantern lore slowly.
They're cops, man. Like, you just roll another one in.
Yeah.
I you know what? I would do the first one as like...
Just...
No.
Okay.
I'd do it as Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, because
why would they have two from Earth?
Sorry?
Why would they have two?
You can get into that. You can. I think that could be the conflict of the movie. That both these guys feel like they're the best person for the job.
Okay.
Hal Jordan feels that this guy's stepping on his toe, and we get into it.
To
But I think at this point in the comics, Jon Stewart is as respected as Hal Jordan.
But he's already cast Guy Gardner, isn't he? Yeah. So Nathan Fillion, and this is why I feel like he's going to jump the gun a little bit. I hope not. Pardon the pun, but I really. Yeah, I don't want all the Green Lanterns to be introduced straight away. I think you got to do them slowly. And I want to see all 6 of them. I want to see all of them.
Do you think there's more than that now, I think?
Well, the ones I want to see...
No, you're talking down to Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, aren't you?
That's what I'm talking about.
Because
there's a new one now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also a kid one. There's a kid one and there's another new one. Now we just got... How are there this many on the same turf?
I want to see... I thought Aaron Taylor-Johnson for Hal Jordan, but he's doing a lot of superhero movies now, and he probably won't do that.
I think...
So, I went with...
Yeah.
Zac Efron. Hal Jordan can do a little bit of comedy, but I think Zac Efron's a good actor. And I think he can do the... seriousness of Hal Jordan and then the comedy on his own terms, but then tries to act all big and serious everyone else. I want Jon Stewart to be John David Washington, so they might have to do a bit of plinth work. And Marissa Barella as Jessica Cruz. Obviously Nathan Fillion is going to be Guy Gardner. Kyle Rayner is just get another Zac Efron.
I would actually put Zac Efron, but his face just looks so weird at the moment. But no, but he said it's because he broke his jaw, so maybe that's kind of just like gonna sort of resolve itself with time. I'd probably put Zac Efron as Kyle Rayner.
Yeah, because Kyle Rayner's meant to be the prettier one, right?
And I also kind of like, he's young and he's exciting. And I think Zac Efron
ain't young, though.
I know, but he kind of has that energy about him. I think Hal Jordan was supposed to be like that, like 20 years ago. But I think Hal Jordan should be someone a bit more...
Oh, so you want a withered post-parallax Hal Jordan?
Not necessarily that. It doesn't have to be like, oh, he's so like, this guy's been through the ringer, but someone who knows what they're doing, who has that like level of like authority about them. And I just think him and I think John David Washington is kind of not quite, because he has the beard, but he's still kind of like youthful. I think in The Creator it was like, this dude's really going through it, but he seems kind of like a bit young to be doing all of this. Yeah. But obviously he's nearly 40 as well. Yeah. But I think
you want someone weathered.
He's like a good late 30s, and so Zac Efron.
You want some texture on his skin. You're talking Idris Elba now.
Bro, Idris Elba's probably a bit too old to start taking on that now. Because it's a fine line, because they have to be old, but also they have to be old enough to do this for a while.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, but even like, I hate to do it, but someone like Pedro Pascal, right? And not Pedro Pascal because he's in everything, but late 40s can be serious and kind of be a role model thing.
Salt and pepper sides,
believe
it.
Yeah.
You believe it, kind of.
But
if Zac Efron can't pull off salt and pepper.
But I kind of want a white dude for this. I think it's important in this instance. Yeah. Hal Jordan is white dude, because I think it's kind of like the archetypal, like American, like, but also like
Lethal Weapon kind of.
Yeah. Like, I think it's fun, and it's like you say, it kind of works like that if you have like a buddy cop thing. And I don't think Jon Stewart's going to be... I don't want Jon Stewart to be like rogue or anything either. They're both really serious, and the conflict is that they both think that they're the best person for the job.
Let me bounce off of you. Let's make it Lethal Weapon exactly.
Right.
But it's Jon Stewart and Kyle Rayner. And Hal Jordan is still like the top... Like,
he's like the chief.
He's been there. He's the guy you're trying to build up to be.
Yeah.
So he's like in and around it. He's post-Parallax, or maybe Parallax are coming up, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's do John Stewart and Kyle Rayner. So you can just do Lethal Weapon. I don't know. But my only stipulation for Green Lantern movies is I feel like if you rush it, you skip so much lore. And the Green Lantern lore is almost good enough to be a universe in itself.
Yeah.
Especially post Jeff Johns.
It's got enough characters as well.
Yeah, I think, just do loads of Green Lantern movies.
Okay.
It should be some of the first things you do. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in what James Gunn's going to do. I think at the very least he'll make it cohesive. And after Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm pretty confident he'll do Superman a bit of justice.
I think that's probably just what people would appreciate at this point as well. Like, because as we said, people will excuse mediocrity sometimes if it's in the service of something bigger that they're excited for.
Exactly. So, yeah, man. James Gunn, run me my money. I'm going to save up for some lawyers. Be careful, buddy.
You better lawyer up, James.
Yeah, until next time.
See you next week.